You need to stop talking. Right now. Nathaniel Pierce's voice sliced through the grocery store like a blade. But Marissa didn't stop. She couldn't. Mandarin, she said, her voice trembling but clear as she turned to the pale-faced Chinese investor beside him. Tazepieni! He's lying to you. The Georgetown project is fake. The man's eyes went wide. What did you just... Nathaniel stepped forward, his face twisting with rage. Marissa switched to French without missing a beat, locking eyes with the woman in the Chanel suit. Les documents qu'il vous a montrés? Tous falsifiés. The documents he showed you? All forged. The woman gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Nathaniel grabbed Marissa's wrist, his grip tight. I will bury you. You already tried, she whispered, her voice shaking. 3 years ago. His fingers loosened. His eyes narrowed. Wait. His breath caught. You! My name is Marissa Lane, she said, loud enough for every camera now pointed at them. And I was the lead translator on the federal task force that investigated you. The grocery store went dead silent. Nathaniel's face drained of color. You were supposed to be gone, he hissed. I was, her voice cracked. But you just made a mistake you can't buy your way out of. You just saw a woman destroy a billionaire in the middle of a Georgetown grocery store. But you don't know how she got there. You don't know what he took from her. And you don't know why she's been hiding for 3 years, until today. If you need to know how we got here, if you need to understand what happens when the person everyone underestimates finally stops being silent, then stay with me. Because this isn't just about one confrontation. This is about what happens when you find your voice again after the world tried to steal it. Hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to remember this story. Now let me take you back to where it really started. Not the grocery store, not the confrontation, but to the moment I became nobody. There's a certain kind of safety in being nobody. When people don't see you, they can't hurt you. When they don't know your name, they can't destroy you. When you blend into the background, you survive. And for 8 months, survival was all I wanted. My name is Marissa Lane. I'm 28 years old. I have a master's degree in linguistics from Georgetown University and another in international relations from Johns Hopkins. I speak 6 languages fluently: English, Spanish, French, Mandarin, Arabic, and Russian. 3 years ago, I worked for a federal task force investigating international financial crimes, money laundering, fraud, corruption that crossed oceans and destroyed lives. I was good at my job, really good, until the day I wasn't allowed to do it anymore. But we'll get to that. Right now, I need to tell you about Dawson and Gray Market. If you've never been to Georgetown, picture cobblestone streets, historic row houses, and wealth so old it doesn't need to announce itself. Dawson and Gray sits right in the heart of it, exposed brick walls, reclaimed wood shelves, Edison bulbs hanging from iron fixtures. It's the kind of grocery store where a block of cheese costs $40 and people don't blink, where senators' spouses pick up organic arugula between Pilates and charity luncheons, where the wine selection is curated by someone with a French accent and an attitude. I worked there as a stalker. Green apron, hair pulled back. No makeup, no jewelry, nothing that would make anyone look twice. I blended in. I needed to blend in. Every morning, I clocked in at 7 a.m., restocked organic produce, rotated inventory, and made myself as forgettable as possible. When customers asked where something was, I pointed. I didn't chat. I didn't smile too much. I didn't make eye contact. I'd perfected the art of being invisible. And honestly, it felt safer that way. Because 3 years ago, I learned what happens when you're visible, when you know too much. When you become a problem for people who have the power to make problems disappear. I lived in a tiny studio apartment in Columbia Heights. No social media, prepaid phone. I walked to work every day, took the same route, kept my head down. My coworkers were nice enough. There was Kevin, the manager, early 40s, always stressed, always trying to impress the owners. Dana, who worked the register and talked non-stop about her kids, and Marcus, who stocked shelves with me and never asked questions, which I appreciated. Nobody knew about my degrees. Nobody knew about my past. Nobody knew I used to sit in classified briefings, translating intercepted communications between corrupt officials and criminal networks. Nobody knew that I used to matter, and that was fine. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I was healing, regrouping, figuring out my next move. But really, I was hiding. Hiding from the memories, from the anger, from the crushing weight of knowing the truth and being powerless to do anything about it. I'd been working at Dawson and Gray for 8 months when everything changed. It was a Wednesday in mid-October, one of those crisp fall days where D.C. almost feels romantic, leaves turning amber and gold, the Potomac shimmering in the distance, tourists taking pictures of monuments. The store was moderately busy. I was in the back, restocking imported pastas, penne, rigatoni, orecchiette, arranging them by region like Kevin insisted. That's when I felt it. The shift. You know that feeling when someone important walks into a room? When the energy changes, the air gets heavier, conversations drop to whispers? Kevin rushed past me, straightening his tie, his face flushed. VIP customer, he muttered. Big spender. Everything needs to be perfect. I didn't look up. We got VIP customers all the time. Congresspeople, lobbyists, the occasional celebrity shooting a movie in town. I kept working, my back to the front of the store, and then I heard his voice. I need this delivered to my office by 4 p.m., not 4:15. 4 p.m. Sharp. Can you manage that? Or should I take my business elsewhere? My hands froze. I knew that voice. I'd heard it on recordings, intercepted phone calls, conference calls with business partners in Shanghai and Moscow, discussing wire transfers and shell corporations. I'd heard it so many times I could still hear it in my nightmares. Slowly, I turned around, and there he was, Nathaniel Pierce. 52 years old but looking younger, personal trainer, tailored suits, perfect hair with just enough silver to look distinguished, charcoal suit, Italian shoes, a watch that probably cost 6 figures. He stood near the wine section, flanked by 2 people I recognized from business news, a Chinese investor in an expensive suit and a French woman wearing Chanel and pearls. He was courting investors. My heart started pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Kevin was practically bowing. Of course, Mr. Pierce. 4 p.m. absolutely. We'll make sure everything is perfect. Nathaniel nodded without even looking at him, already turning back to his guests, gesturing toward a display of Bordeaux. I should have stayed in the back. I should have kept my head down, finished my shift, gone home. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at the man who'd destroyed everything. The man whose crimes had ended my career. The man whose connections had gotten a federal investigation shut down. The man who'd gotten away with ruining lives while I lost everything for trying to stop him. And he was here, shopping for wine, laughing, completely untouchable. His eyes swept across the store, and for just a second, they landed on me. He didn't recognize me. Why would he? He'd never seen my face. I was just a name buried in a classified file he probably never read. To him, I was nobody. Just another employee in a green apron. Invisible. Beneath his notice. He looked away, laughing at something the French woman said, and something inside me cracked. Not broke, not yet, just cracked. I turned back to my boxes, my hands shaking, my breath coming too fast. Not here, I told myself. Not now. Just get through the shift. I made it 20 more minutes. Then, Kevin found me in the stockroom. Marissa. He was slightly out of breath, excited. I need a huge favor. My stomach dropped. What? Mr. Pierce just booked a private tasting event. Tonight, after we close. Just him and some investors. Very exclusive, very high profile. No. I need you to work it, Kevin continued. Just you, me, and Dana. A couple hours, tops. I'll pay you cash. Extra. Every instinct screamed no. But I couldn't say no without raising questions, without breaking my cover. So I heard myself say, okay. Kevin's face lit up. Thank you. Seriously. This could be huge for us. Just be professional, stay in the background, and let me handle him. He rushed off. And I stood there in the flickering stockroom light, my heart racing, my hands trembling. Nathaniel Pierce was coming back tonight, and I was going to have to serve him. The rest of my shift passed in a fog. I went through the motions, rotating stock, wiping down shelves, restocking the organic produce section. But my mind was somewhere else entirely. 3 years. 3 years since I'd seen any evidence related to Nathaniel Pierce. 3 years since the investigation was shut down. 3 years since I'd walked away from everything I'd worked for. And now he was coming back. Tonight. The store closed at 6 p.m. Kevin ushered out the last customers and locked the front doors. The afternoon light was fading, casting long shadows through the big front windows. Dana and I helped Kevin set up the tasting area near the wine section. White tablecloth. Crystal glasses. Small plates of artisanal cheese, imported olives, crackers that cost more per ounce than most people's lunch. "This is really important," Kevin kept saying, adjusting and readjusting the wine glasses. "Pierce could become one of our biggest clients. His office alone spends thousands a month on catering." I nodded, arranging napkins with mechanical precision. Dana leaned over to me. "You okay? You've been quiet all afternoon." "Fine," I lied. "Just tired." "Well, hopefully this won't take long," Kevin said. 2 hours max. 2 hours. I could survive 2 hours. I'd survived worse. At 7:15 p.m., they arrived. Nathaniel Pierce walked through the door like he owned the place, which, given how much money he spent here, maybe he felt like he did. He'd brought 4 people this time. The same Chinese investor and French woman from earlier, plus 2 others. A younger man in his 30s, American, carrying a leather portfolio, and an older woman, maybe 60, with silver hair and expensive jewelry. All of them moved with that particular confidence that comes from never having to check a price tag. Kevin practically vibrated with nervous energy as he welcomed them. "Mr. Pierce, welcome back. Everything is ready for you. We've selected some exceptional vintages from our reserve collection." "Great," Nathaniel interrupted, already walking past him. "Let's get started. I have dinner reservations at 9. Twine. Of course he did. They settled around the table. Nathaniel took the head seat. Naturally, the investors arranged themselves on either side. I stood near the wall, holding a wine bottle, trying to disappear into the exposed brick. Kevin began his presentation, explaining the first wine, a California Cabernet, highly rated, perfect tannins, notes of blackberry and oak. I watched Nathaniel's face as Kevin talked. He wasn't really listening. He was performing, nodding at the right moments, making impressed sounds. But his attention was on his guests, reading their reactions, calculating. This wasn't about wine. This was about building trust, creating an atmosphere of sophistication and success, making these investors feel special so they'd be more likely to sign over their money. I'd seen this exact playbook before, in transcripts, in surveillance footage, in the case files I used to review. "Marissa." I jumped slightly. Kevin was gesturing to me. "Pour for our guests, please." I stepped forward, my heart hammering. I moved around the table, filling glasses with the Cabernet. My hands were steady, years of practice, but inside I was screaming. When I reached Nathaniel's glass, I had to lean close. He smelled like expensive cologne and arrogance. "Thank you," he said absently, not looking at me. I was furniture to him, a prop in his performance. I stepped back to my position against the wall. The tasting continued. Kevin presented a French Bordeaux next, then an Italian Barolo, and while Kevin talked about terroir and aging and vintage years, Nathaniel started his real pitch. "The Georgetown development I mentioned," he said casually, swirling his wine. "The zoning was finalized last week. We're looking at breaking ground in April." My stomach clenched. The Chinese investor leaned forward. "And the projected returns?" "Conservative estimates put it at 30% over 3 years, Nathaniel said smoothly. "But realistically, I'm expecting closer to 45. Lie. The French woman tilted her head. "That seems quite high for real estate in the current market." "It would be," Nathaniel agreed, "if this were a typical development. But we're partnering with the district on infrastructure improvements. New metro access. The property values in that corridor are going to explode." Another lie. "I knew because I'd reviewed this exact scheme 3 years ago. The infrastructure improvements didn't exist. The metro access was a fantasy. The whole thing was built on fabricated documents and false promises. And these people were about to pour millions into it." "Marissa," Kevin's voice pulled me back. "The Barolo, please." I picked up the next bottle, my hands trembling slightly. "Stay calm. Just get through this." I moved around the table again. refilling glasses. The documentation is all available for review, of course, Nathaniel was saying. My attorney can send everything over tomorrow. Permits, projections, partnership agreements. All forged, all fake. I reached the French woman's glass. Merci, she said quietly with a genuine smile. Something twisted in my chest. She seemed nice. They all did. They had no idea they were about to be destroyed. I moved to Nathaniel's glass. My hand was shaking now. Steady. Just pour the wine and walk away. I tilted the bottle. The wine flowed smoothly into his glass. Then my hand jerked. Just slightly. Just enough. Wine splashed over the rim of the glass, a few drops hitting the white tablecloth. One drop landed on Nathaniel's sleeve. Everything stopped. Nathaniel looked down at his sleeve. Then slowly, very slowly, he looked up at me. The expression on his face made my blood run cold. Are you kidding me? Nathaniel's voice was quiet. Dangerous. I'm so sorry, sir, I said quickly. Let me get something to... Do you have any idea how much this suit costs? Kevin rushed forward. Mr. Pierce, I'm so sorry. Marissa, get a towel. I don't want a towel, Nathaniel snapped. I want someone competent. Heat flooded my face. The investors were staring. The French woman looked uncomfortable. It was an accident, I said quietly. An accident? Nathaniel laughed, cold and cruel. An accident is what happens when someone qualified makes a mistake. This is incompetence. Kevin was practically wringing his hands. Sir, I assure you. Look at her, Nathaniel interrupted, gesturing at me dismissively. Does she look like she belongs in a place like this? Does she look like she has the education, the training, the intelligence to work somewhere that caters to serious people? My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. I apologize, sir, Kevin stammered. It won't happen again. You're right, it won't, Nathaniel said coldly, because she's going to stand in the back and stay out of the way. He turned back to his investors, dismissing me completely, and something inside me snapped, not cracked, snapped. 3 years of silence, 3 years of hiding, 3 years of swallowing the truth while people like Nathaniel Pierce destroyed lives and walked away richer. I set the wine bottle down on the table, carefully, deliberately. Actually, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, I do have the education. The table went quiet. Nathaniel turned back to me, eyes narrowed. Excuse me? You asked if I have the education to work somewhere that caters to serious people, I continued. I have a master's degree in linguistics from Georgetown University, and another in international relations from Johns Hopkins. Kevin's face went pale. Marissa, but I wasn't finished. I speak 6 languages fluently, I said, looking directly at Nathaniel. English, Spanish, French, Mandarin, Arabic, and Russian. I turned to the Chinese investor. Biru, I said in perfect Mandarin. 我可以告诉这位先生，他刚才听到的所有投资信息都是谎言. For example, I can tell this gentleman that all the investment information he just heard is a lie. The investor's eyes went wide. Nathaniel stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. What did you just say? I switched to French, addressing the woman. Madame, le projet dont il parle n'existe pas. Les permis sont falsifiés. Ma'am, the project he's talking about doesn't exist. The permits are forged. Her hand flew to her mouth. That's enough. Nathaniel's face was turning red. No, I said. It's not nearly enough. The French woman stood up first. Monsieur Pierce, she said, her voice icy. I believe we are finished here. She gathered her purse and walked toward the door without another word. The Chinese investor followed, pulling out his phone, already making a call in rapid Mandarin. The older woman looked at Nathaniel with pure disgust. My lawyers will be reviewing everything you sent us. If even one document is falsified, you'll be hearing from them. She left. The younger man with the portfolio stood, hesitated, then looked at me. Thank you, he said quietly. Then he was gone too. Nathaniel stood alone at the table, his face a mask of rage and humiliation. The expensive wine sat untouched. The carefully arranged cheese plates looked ridiculous now. Kevin stood frozen near the wall, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. You, Nathaniel said, his voice shaking with fury. You have no idea what you just did. I know exactly what I did, I said. I told the truth. I will destroy you, he hissed, stepping toward me. I will make sure you never work again. I will— You already did that, I interrupted. 3 years ago. There's nothing left for you to take. His hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to hit me. But then, Kevin stepped forward, his voice surprisingly steady. Mr. Pierce, he said, I think you need to leave. Nathaniel whipped around. What? You heard me, Kevin said. And I saw his hands were shaking, but his voice stayed firm. What I just heard, if even half of it is true, I don't want your business. You're making a huge mistake, Nathaniel said. Maybe, Kevin replied, but I can live with that. Nathaniel grabbed his coat, shot me one last look of pure hatred, and stormed out. The door slammed behind him. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Dana, who'd been watching from behind the register in complete shock, whispered, Holy shit! My legs suddenly felt weak. I sat down heavily in one of the chairs, my whole body trembling. Kevin approached slowly. Marissa, is all of that true? I nodded, unable to speak. You really worked for the FBI? A joint task force, I managed. I was the translator. I reviewed all the international communications, the wire transfers, the calls with foreign investors. I documented everything. And the investigation was really shut down? Senator Richardson received a substantial campaign contribution from one of Pierce's shell companies, I said quietly. 3 weeks later, the case was closed. All materials classified. Everyone involved was reassigned or let go. And you? Dana asked softly. I was told that if I ever spoke about the case, I'd be prosecuted for revealing classified information. I said, my security clearance was revoked. Every job I applied for, I was rejected. My phone was tapped. My apartment was broken into twice, nothing stolen, just moved around. A message. I looked up at Kevin. So I disappeared. I changed my number, deleted my social media, took the first job I could find where nobody would ask questions. Here, Kevin said. Here, I confirmed. Dana sat down across from me. But why did you speak up tonight, if you could be prosecuted? Because I'm tired, I said, and suddenly I was crying. I'm so tired of hiding. I'm tired of watching people like him destroy lives while I stay silent. I'm tired of being afraid. I wiped my eyes with my apron. And those people tonight, they seemed like good people. They didn't deserve to be his next victims. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Then again, and again. I pulled it out. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Miss Lane? A woman's voice, professional. My name is Diana Park. I'm a senior investigator with the Securities and Exchange Commission. My heart stopped. How did you get this number? One of the investors from tonight called us, she said. Mr. Chen. He recorded part of your conversation. Miss Lane, if what you said is true, if you have knowledge of ongoing fraud by Nathaniel Pierce, we need to talk. The investigation was shut down, I said. It's classified. I can't. The SEC investigation is separate from the federal task force, she interrupted. We've been building our own case against Pierce for 8 months. We have evidence of securities fraud, but we need someone who understands the international component. Someone who can translate the foreign communications and testify about the pattern of fraud. She paused. Miss Lane, we can protect you, and we can finally hold him accountable, but we need your help. I looked at Kevin and Dana, both watching me with worried faces. I thought about 3 years of hiding, 3 years of silence, 3 years of letting Nathaniel Pierce win. When do you need me? I asked. You know what I realized in that moment? Silence feels like safety. But sometimes silence is just another word for surrender. For 3 years, I convinced myself that staying quiet was protecting me, that hiding was healing, that being invisible was the smart choice. But the truth is, I wasn't healing. I was dying. A little bit every day. Every time I swallowed the truth. Every time I pretended I was less than I was. Every time I let fear win. And maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe you're there right now hiding some part of yourself because it feels safer. Staying quiet because speaking up feels too dangerous. If this story is reminding you of something you've buried, something you've been too afraid to say, maybe it's worth remembering. Maybe it matters. Maybe your voice matters more than you think. If you believe that truth still matters, hit that subscribe button. Because stories like this need to be remembered. Over the next 2 weeks, everything changed. Diana Park and her team at the SEC moved fast. I spent hours in their offices, translating documents, reviewing communications, connecting the dots between Pierce's American operations and his international shell companies. The investors from that night, Mr. Chen, Madame Beaumont, Mrs. Richardson, all came forward with the materials Pierce had sent them. Just like I'd said, the documents were falsified. Permits that didn't exist, approvals that were never granted, financial projections built on fantasy. The SEC filed formal charges: securities fraud, wire fraud, false statements to investors. And this time, there was no senator to make it go away. This time, the evidence was public. This time, people were watching. The story went viral. Grocery store worker exposes billionaire fraud was trending for 3 days. News outlets wanted interviews. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Kevin offered me my job back, of course. But I didn't need it anymore. Because the job offers started coming. First, from a law firm in D.C., specializing in international fraud. Then from the State Department. Then from a translation company that worked with the United Nations. Within a month, I had 7 offers. I chose the law firm. The same kind of work I used to do. But this time with people who valued the truth more than political connections. My first day, I walked into that office building in my best suit, my head held high, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. I felt like myself again. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courtroom as Nathaniel Pierce's trial began. I was there as an expert witness, as a translator, as someone who knew his patterns, his methods, his lies. When they called me to the stand, I looked directly at him. He looked smaller than I remembered, older, scared. I told the truth, all of it, every detail I'd been forced to keep silent about for 3 years. And this time, no one could stop me. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Nathaniel Pierce was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. I learned something through all of this, something I want you to understand. Your voice, your real voice, the one that speaks truth, even when it's hard, is more powerful than you've been taught to believe. The world will try to convince you to stay small, to stay quiet, to blend in and not make waves. It will tell you that speaking up is dangerous, that it's safer to just let things go. And sometimes, for a while, that might even feel true. But I promise you this, the day you find your voice again, the day you stop hiding and start speaking your truth, that's the day you start living again. Not just surviving, living. So if this story moved you, if it reminded you of something you've been too afraid to say, if it made you think about your own voice and whether you've been using it, then maybe it's time. Subscribe if you believe that truth matters, if you believe that one voice can make a difference, if you believe that the person they underestimate the most might just be the one who changes everything, because that person might be you. I still work at that law firm, I still translate, I still help build cases against people who think they're untouchable. But now, when I walk down the street, I don't keep my head down anymore. I look people in the eye. I smile. I exist in full color instead of trying to fade into the background. Because I'm not invisible anymore. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm Marissa Lane. I have 2 master's degrees. I speak 6 languages. I helped bring down one of the most powerful men in Washington. And I did it all by refusing to stay silent. Sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest truths. And when they finally speak, the world shifts in ways nobody expects. Your voice matters. Don't let anyone make you forget.